So, what is positive education? Well, positive education is presented as a relatively new approach, scientific approach to education. But according to its advocates, positive education does not aim at introducing a new paradigm of education as much as implementing in schools those positive psychology interventions that have previously worked in the context of therapy, corporations, or the army. Positive education also draws from ambitious, albeit very heterogeneous initiatives delivered in the school context of the UK, the US, and Australia, such as the SEAL program, you might be familiar with an emphasis on the promotion of emotional intelligence and optimism, the Penn Resiliency Program, with an emphasis on resilience and character strengths. Also applied this one to the Army, the Breathe Program, with an emphasis on mindfulness, or the Geelong Grammar School project in Australia, which is supposed to be the first full implementation of positive psychology interventions to an entire school. But despite the loose definition of the field, advocates adduce two main points to outline what will be the movement's distinctive hallmarks. Two ones. The first one, the first point frequently point forward, is that contrary to traditional or remedial approaches to schools, positive education aims instead at expanding education from its focus on repairing negative and dysfunctional behaviors, for example, failure, addiction, bullying, and so on, to mainly promoting positive and optimally functional behaviors based on the resilience, self-esteem, hope, creativity, gratitude, and so on. The rationale underlying is that a higher focus on nurturing what is right with the students instead of what is wrong would provide a triple educational benefit. First, it will reduce mental health problems. Second, it will prevent mental health conditions. And third, it will promote flourishing, character, and satisfaction with life or well-being among the youth. And a series of school-applied studies on hope, gratitude, resilience, or emotional intelligence seem to suggest promising effects of positive education interventions in those three aspects. I brought some of them. The second point frequently brought forward is that well-being is not only synergistic with better learning and higher school achievement, but the idea is that well-being precedes these outcomes, thus establishing a causal relationship between positive moods and skills and school performance. The explanation underlying is double. First, as advocates say, because individuals, in this case students, do good by feeling good instead of the other way around. And second, because contrary to negative emotions, which would, according to them, narrow cognitive processes and mainly foster critical and analytical thinking, positive emotions instead would enable a broader array of thinking possibilities and problem-solving skills, including more creative thinking, holistic thinking, innovative thinking, and so on. Other authors suggest that nurturing well-being in children and adolescents will help to close the attainment gap between advantaged and disadvantaged young people, as well as to facilitate improved outcomes in the future, such as, for example, higher employability or better work performance. In this line of research, educational approaches coming from the fields of economics and business studies, such as entrepreneurial education, have also emphasized the importance of cultivating positive emotional skills in the youth as necessary to develop entrepreneurial competences in the future. Let me talk a bit about Spain, because as I mentioned, the interest in positive education in Spain has increased notably in the last few years in the country. Yet, official records on the influence of the movement in this country are lacking. And this is partly because positive education initiatives are mainly delivered by private institutions. So my colleagues and I are currently mapping out the positive education initiatives to try to determine the real impact of the movement in the country. And although this is still a work in progress, let me share with you some pieces of information very, very quickly. We have organized this information in three main areas. Positive education programs applied in schools, general training programs, mostly addressed to teachers, and curricular subjects. This means curricular subjects that positive education is a curricular subject taught in schools. But parallel to the rising interest of positive education, a mounting corpus of evidence has compellingly challenged the movement, exposing its limitations, insufficiencies, and lack of effectiveness, among others. From wide-ranging reports and meta-analysis to replication studies, empirical examinations, more theoretical inquiries, there is a strong consensus that positive education does not live up to the scientific standards or brings the educational benefits that advocates vindicate. It is also worth noting that criticism has not been only external. Some advocates have also acknowledged important limitations and problems with the movement. These problems include excessive reliance on self-reports, use of small samples, lack of standardized approaches in measuring social skills and emotional skills. Also includes the absence of theory-driven research, limited consideration of contextual factors, publication biases, and so on. But in spite of these limitations, advocates insist that overall, the findings and outcomes of the movement are, I quote, significant, robust, and promising enough as to encourage policymakers worldwide to implement positive education in the school curriculums. And as you have seen, at least not only in Spain, many are taking these recommendations very seriously. Nevertheless, external criticism has been much more categorical about positive education's scientific limitations and their achievements.